Marcus adjusted his tie for the third time as he waited outside Meridian Wine Bar, watching the evening crowd filter past on the busy downtown street. His first date with Violet had been postponed twice due to work conflicts, making tonight feel even more significant. When she finally appeared around the corner, her auburn hair catching the golden hour light, Marcus felt his nervous energy transform into genuine excitement. Sorry, I'm running a few minutes behind," Violet said, greeting him with a warm smile. That immediately put him at ease. She wore a flowing emerald dress that complemented her artistic sensibilities perfectly. Gallery emergency, you know how it is. Marcus didn't actually know how gallery emergencies worked, but he nodded anyway, charmed by her apologetic expression. They'd met 3 weeks ago at his company's charity auction where Violet had been representing a local artist collective. Their brief conversation about abstract expressionism had lasted nearly an hour, surprising them both with how naturally it flowed. The wine bar's interior was exactly what Marcus had hoped for: intimate lighting, exposed brick walls, and cozy corner booths that encouraged conversation. They settled into a quiet spot near the back, ordering a bottle of Pinot Noir that Violet recommended with surprising expertise. "I have to admit something," Violet said, after they'd covered the usual first date topics of work, hobbies, and weekend plans. "I was really looking forward to tonight. Our conversation at the auction was the most interesting I'd had in months." The evening was progressing better than he'd dared hope. Violet was engaging, thoughtful, and had this way of tilting her head when she listened that made him feel like the most fascinating person in the room. It was during their second glass of wine, as Marcus was describing his recent hiking trip to the Blue Ridge Mountains, that something shifted. Violet had been leaning forward attentively, but suddenly she paused mid-nod, her expression changing from interested to almost puzzled. "I'm sorry," she said, shaking her head slightly. "This might sound strange, but—" She hesitated, looking genuinely confused. "Do you wear cologne?" Marcus touched his neck self-consciously, just a little. "Nothing fancy. Picked it up at the drugstore." "No, that's not what I mean." Violet's voice had taken on an odd quality, almost dreamy. "There's something else. Something underneath that's just ... double quotes." She trailed off, seeming to search for words. "It's incredible." Before Marcus could respond, Violet leaned closer across the small table, close enough that he could see the golden flecks in her green eyes. She took what seemed like a deliberate breath, her eyelids fluttering slightly. "God," she whispered, almost to herself. "What is that?" 3 weeks into dating Violet, Marcus was beginning to question his own judgment. What had started as flattering attention to his natural magnetism, as Violet called it, was evolving into something that made his skin crawl in public spaces. Third date at the downtown farmers market had been a disaster. Violet had insisted on walking so close behind him that other shoppers kept giving them irritated looks as they blocked pathways. When Marcus stopped to examine some heirloom tomatoes, Violet pressed herself against his back under the pretense of seeing over his shoulder, though she was nearly his height. "You smell like cedar and rain today," she murmured into his ear, causing the elderly vendor to raise her eyebrows disapprovingly. "Did you use different laundry soap?" Marcus's roommate Diego noticed the change immediately when Violet started spending more time at their apartment. During movie nights, she would position herself behind Marcus on the couch, her chin resting on his shoulder in a way that seemed designed more for proximity to his neck than comfort. Diego caught Marcus's eye more than once, silently communicating his confusion about the odd arrangement. The breaking point came when Marcus returned from the bathroom to find Violet sitting in his desk chair, holding one of his worn t-shirts against her face. "Sorry," she said quickly, but didn't put the shirt down. "I was just ... it fell off your dresser." The shirt had been hanging neatly in his closet 5 minutes earlier. "Violet, what are you doing?" Her cheeks flushed pink, but her grip on the fabric tightened. "I know this sounds crazy, but being around your scent just makes me feel so calm. It's like everything's right with the world." She looked up at him with an expression that was part embarrassment, part desperation.
"When you're
not here, I miss it. Actually miss it, like withdrawal." Marcus sat on his bed, trying to process what he was hearing. That's not normal, Violet. I know it's not normal, she snapped, then immediately softened. I'm sorry, I don't understand it either. I've never been like this with anyone else. It's just you. There's something about your natural chemistry that's like... She struggled for words. Like a drug I can't get enough of. Diego appeared in the doorway, clearly having overheard. Hey man, I'm going to grab dinner with my sister. You two, work this out? His meaningful look at Marcus suggested they'd be having a serious conversation later. After Diego left, Violet became more aggressive in her need for closeness. She followed Marcus to the kitchen, standing directly behind him while he made coffee, her breathing noticeably deeper when she was near his neck. When he tried to create space by moving to the living room, she followed immediately, settling beside him on the couch with her leg pressed against his. I've been thinking, Violet said, running her fingers along his arm. Maybe I could start keeping some clothes here. It's just a few things for convenience. Marcus recognized this for what it was, not a natural relationship progression, but a territorial claim. Violet, I think we need to slow down a little. Her face changed instantly, a flash of something almost panic crossing her features. Slow down? But things are going so well. We're perfect together. She moved closer, her hands sliding up to rest on his chest. You can't tell me you don't feel this connection to... Marcus did feel a connection, but it was increasingly overshadowed by his discomfort with her behavior. As Violet pressed closer, breathing deeply against his neck, he realized this wasn't about emotional intimacy at all. Marcus's sister Carmen had always been perceptive, but her observation skills went into overdrive the moment she met Violet at their monthly family dinner. What should have been a casual introduction became an uncomfortable study in bizarre social dynamics. So Violet, Marcus tells me you work at the Whitmore Gallery, Carmen said, passing the salad bowl around their parents' dining table. That must be fascinating work. Violet smiled politely, but Marcus noticed she kept glancing at him every few seconds, as if checking to make sure he was still there. When their father launched into one of his stories about his accounting firm, Violet gradually shifted her chair closer to Marcus's, eventually sitting close enough that their shoulders touched. Carmen's eyebrows rose slightly, but she continued making pleasant conversation. It was when Marcus excused himself to help their mother in the kitchen that things became truly awkward. Through the doorway, Carmen watched Violet's entire demeanor change. Instead of continuing the conversation or checking her phone like a normal person, Violet turned in her chair to face the kitchen, her expression almost hungry as she tracked Marcus's movements. When Marcus returned with the water pitcher, Violet immediately straightened and smiled brightly, but not before Carmen caught her taking what appeared to be a deliberate breath as he passed behind her chair. Everything okay? Okay? Marcus asked, noticing the sudden tension. Fine, Carmen said, her voice carefully neutral. Violet was just telling me about the new exhibition you're curating. Violet blinked, clearly having no memory of discussing any exhibition. Oh right, yes, it's very ... exciting. The evening deteriorated from there. During dessert, Violet found excuses to touch Marcus constantly, reaching across him for the sugar, brushing imaginary lint from his shirt, placing her hand on his arm while making points in conversation. Most unsettling was her habit of leaning toward him every few minutes, ostensibly to whisper comments about the conversation, but clearly breathing deeply while she did so. When their parents stepped outside to check on the garden, Carmen seized her opportunity. Marcus, can I talk to you privately? She said, standing abruptly. Kitchen. Now. In the privacy of the kitchen, Carmen didn't mince words. What the hell is wrong with your girlfriend? Carmen, that's not... She's been sniffing you all evening like a bloodhound. And the way she watches you when you leave the room. It's like... She's afraid you're going to disappear. Carmen crossed her arms, her expression serious. This isn't normal behavior, Marcus. At all. Marcus felt his defenses rising, but deep down, he knew Carmen was right. She's just affectionate. Some people are more physical than others. Physical is one thing. This is something else entirely. Carmen lowered her voice. I watched her, Marcus. When you went to the bathroom earlier, she literally turned her body to track your movement across the room. And when you sat back down, she did this thing with her breathing that made me genuinely uncomfortable. You're exaggerating. Am I because from where I'm sitting? Looks like she's got some kind of fixation that has nothing to do with loving you as a person. Carmen's voice softened. I'm worried about you. This level of ... whatever this is, it's not healthy for either of you. Before Marcus could respond, Violet appeared in the doorway, her smile bright, but her eyes slightly anxious. Sorry to interrupt. I was just wondering if Marcus was ready to head home soon. I'm getting a bit tired. Carmen and Marcus exchanged glances. It was only 8:30, and Violet had seemed perfectly energetic all evening until Marcus left her sight. Of course, Marcus said, "Let me just say goodbye to Mom and Dad." As they prepared to leave, Carmen pulled Marcus aside one more time. "Promise me you'll think about what I said. And Marcus, be careful. This kind of obsession can escalate quickly." Driving home, Marcus found himself really looking at Violet's behavior for the first time with clear eyes. She sat closer to him. Then necessary in the car, occasionally turning her face toward him in a way that seemed designed to catch his scent. When he asked about her thoughts on dinner, her responses were vague and distracted. "Your family is lovely," she said, but her hand was resting on his thigh, and her attention seemed focused more on his physical presence than their conversation. Carmen's words echoed in his mind. This kind of obsession can escalate quickly. Marcus discovered just how far Violet's obsession had escalated when he returned home unexpectedly from a work trip that had been cut short due to a client cancellation. He'd texted Violet that morning saying he'd be gone until Thursday. So when he opened his apartment door Tuesday evening, he expected to find it empty. Instead, he found Violet curled up in his bed, wearing one of his old college sweatshirts and clutching another of his shirts against her chest like a security blanket. She was clearly asleep, her breathing deep and peaceful, in a way that suggested she'd been there for hours. Violet. His voice came out sharper than he intended, startling her awake. She sat up quickly, disoriented and defensive. "Marcus, you're back early. I thought, how did you get in here?" Marcus interrupted, his stomach sinking as he realized the implications. "I didn't give you a key." Violet's face flushed red. "Diego let me in earlier. Told him I was waiting for you to get back from your meeting." The lie came so smoothly that Marcus wondered how many times she'd practiced it. "What meeting?" "I've been in Chicago since Sunday, and you knew that." Marcus sat heavily in his desk chair, suddenly feeling exhausted. "Violet, this has to stop." "What has to stop?" But her defensive tone suggested she knew exactly what he meant. "This..." He gestured at the scene, his clothes scattered around her, his pillow pressed against her face moments before. "Breaking into my apartment, obsessing over my belongings, following me around like..." He struggled for a comparison that wouldn't sound cruel. "Like what?" Violet's voice was quiet, but there was an edge to it that Marcus hadn't heard before. "Like I'm not a person to you. Like I'm just ... a source of something you need." Violet climbed out of his bed, still wearing his sweatshirt, and Marcus noticed how small she looked in it. Not cute small, but somehow diminished, as if she was trying to disappear inside his scent. "That's not true," she said, but her protest lacked conviction, "isn't it? When's the last time we had a conversation about something other than how I smell or taste or feel? When have you asked about my day without immediately trying to get physically closer to me?" The questions hung in the air between them, and Marcus watched Violet's face cycle through emotions: anger, denial, and finally something that looked like recognition. "I don't know what's wrong with me," she whispered, sinking into his desk chair. "I've never been like this before. It's just ... When I'm not around you, I feel anxious, incomplete. And when I am around you, all I can think about is getting closer, breathing you in. It's like my brain gets hijacked." Marcus felt his anger deflate slightly, replaced by something closer to pity. "Violet, I think you need professional help." "Professional help?" Her voice rose. "You think I'm crazy?" "I think you're struggling with something that's beyond normal relationship dynamics," Marcus said carefully. "This level of fixation isn't healthy for either of us." The next day, Marcus found himself sitting across from Dr. Helena Reeves, therapist who specialized in relationship issues and compulsive behaviors. He'd never imagined he'd need professional advice about a girlfriend's obsession with his scent, but Carmen's warnings had proven prophetic. "What you're describing sounds like it could be a form of olfactory fixation," Dr. Reeves explained after Marcus recounted the past month's events. It's rare, but not unheard of. Some people can develop an almost addictive response to specific scents, especially those associated with emotional or chemical attraction. So it's real? Not just in her head? The experience is very real for her, but that doesn't make it healthy or sustainable, Dr. Reeves said. The concerning part is how it's affecting her ability to relate to you as a complete person rather than as an object of fixation. Marcus left the appointment with a clearer understanding of what he was dealing with, but no easy answers about what to do next. The conversation Marcus had been dreading finally happened on a rainy Thursday evening in his apartment. Violet sat across from him on the couch, maintaining more physical distance than she had in weeks, a small sign that his ultimatum the previous weekend had registered. I've been seeing Dr. Patterson for 2 weeks now, Violet said quietly, referring to the therapist Dr. Reeves had recommended. She says I have something called olfactory addiction disorder. It's rare, but it's real. Marcus nodded, relieved that Violet was finally acknowledging the severity of the situation since their confrontation. She'd agreed to stay at her own apartment and limit their contact to scheduled dates with clear boundaries. She explained that for some people, certain scents can trigger the same reward pathways in the brain as drugs. Or gambling, Violet continued. In my case, your natural pheromones created this feedback loop where being around your scent became more important than actually being with you as a person. How do you feel about that explanation? Marcus asked. Gently, Violet was quiet for a moment, twisting her hands in her lap, embarrassed, ashamed. But also relieved, I guess. To know there's a name for it, that it's not just me being a terrible person. Over the following months, their relationship underwent a careful reconstruction. Dr. Patterson worked with Violet on cognitive behavioral techniques to manage her compulsive responses, while Marcus learned to recognize and redirect conversations when Violet's focus became too centered on physical proximity rather than emotional connection. I'm learning to appreciate you for who you are rather than how you make me feel physically, Violet explained during one of their supervised coffee dates 6 weeks later. It's harder than it sounds, honestly, but it's also more rewarding. Marcus discovered aspects of Violet's personality that had been overshadowed by her fixation, her genuine passion for emerging artists, her dry sense of humor, her thoughtful observations about human nature. As her compulsive behaviors decreased, their conversations became more balanced and authentic. Diego, who had watched the entire situation unfold with concern, gradually warmed up to Violet again as her behavior normalized. She seems like herself now, he told Marcus. Before, it was like she was always performing some weird ritual around you. Carmen, ever protective, remained cautiously optimistic. I'm glad she got help, she said, during a family barbecue where Violet interacted normally with everyone instead of hovering around Marcus. But more than that, I'm proud of you for setting boundaries. That couldn't have been easy. Months after their first date, Marcus and Violet found themselves back at Meridian Wine Bar, sitting in the same corner booth where everything had started. The difference was striking. Instead of Violet positioning herself as close as possible to breathe in his scent, they sat across from each other, engaged in animated conversation about a documentary film festival they were planning to attend. Together, I still think you smell good, Violet said with a self-conscious laugh as they prepared to leave. But now it's just one nice thing among many instead of the only thing that mattered. Marcus reached across the table to squeeze her hand. I'm proud of how hard you've worked on this. We've worked on it, Violet corrected. Your patience and boundaries made all the difference. As they walked out into the evening air, Marcus reflected on how much they'd both learned about the difference between attraction and obsession, between intimacy and possession. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was finally based on genuine connection rather than compulsive need. Same time next week, Violet asked, as they reached their cars, echoing the question from their first date. Absolutely, Marcus replied, meaning it in an entirely different way than he had all those months ago.